In this video, you'll learn how to apply for a US passport for the first time if your child is under 16. If you're applying for a passport and you're 16 and older, I've made a separate video to explain the process because it's a little different. The application process is broken into 4 steps: documents, forms, payment, and appointments. In order for a child to receive a US passport, the parent must provide proof that the child is a US citizen. This can be done by providing a birth certificate that meets all of the requirements listed on the US Department of State's website. If the parent is unable to provide a birth certificate, there are a few other documents that they can provide instead. Regardless of which document you choose to provide, you'll need to make a photocopy of it. The photocopy should be black and white, single-sided, and printed on an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. If you're hesitant to provide a photocopy because the document says that photocopies are not allowed, you may submit a certified copy that has a seal or stamp from the issuing authority, or you could also provide another original. Since the child is under age 16, the parent or parents listed on the birth certificate will need to attend the passport appointment with the child in order for them to receive a US passport. While the parents' names have been listed on the birth certificate, they'll still need to provide proof that they are indeed the parents of the child. This can be done by providing a passport or a state or federal issued ID. If you make a passport appointment outside of the state that you and the child reside in, you'll need to also provide another document in addition to your ID. Here's a list of additional documents they can provide. Whether you've chosen to provide your passport or your state or federally issued ID, remember to make a photocopy of the document. The photocopy should be single-sided and printed on 8.5 by 11-inch paper in black and white. If you provide your state or federally issued ID, remember to make a copy of the back of that document as well. If you and your child have a different last name, there's no need to worry. So long as your name is printed on their birth certificate and you can prove you are who you say you are, you shouldn't run into any problems. If your name is now different from the one printed on your child's birth certificate, you will need to provide proof that you've changed your name legally. You'll also need to provide a 2-inch by 2-inch photograph of your child. You can choose to take the photograph at a local retailer, the United States Postal Service, or you can take it yourself at home. Regardless of which option you choose, I'll link the requirements for the photograph down below. The last document that you'll need to get your hands on is your child's Social Security card. While the Social Security card does not need to be submitted with the application, the number is needed to be placed on the application. Once you've put the number on the application, make sure to return the Social Security card to a safe place. Now that we have all of our documents, we'll move on to the next step in the process, forms. Because the child is applying for a US passport for the very first time, they'll need to complete Form DS-11. Form DS-11 can be found on the US Department of State's website or at any of the United States Postal Service locations. Form DS-11 is comprised of 6 pages. Pages 1 through 4 are instructions to help you complete the application, and they contain important information that you'll find useful. Pages 5 and 6 is the actual application, and that is what should be submitted to the US Department of State. As I've mentioned previously, Form DS-11 can be found on the US Department of State's website. Form DS-11 can be completed using their form filler, but cannot be submitted to the US Department of State that way. Instead, you'll need to print out the completed application and submit it through the mail. If you'd like some assistance using the form filler on the US Department of State's website, I've made a video explaining the entire process and I'll link it somewhere on the screen. If you've chosen to obtain a physical copy of Form DS-11 from the United States Postal Service, remember to be very careful when completing the application. If you've made any errors or mistakes, you cannot simply cross them out and write over them. Instead, you'll need to start an entirely new application. And the most important thing to remember when completing this physical form is to only write in black ink. If there are any errors or the ink is not black, the U.S. Department of State reserves the right to reject your application. Another important thing to remember is the parents of the child should not sign Form DS-11 at home. Instead, you should wait until you're at your passport appointment and sign it in the presence of the passport agent when they tell you to do so. And now, let's move on to the third step in the process, payment. In order to determine how much you'll need to pay for your child's U.S. passport, head over to the U.S. Department of State's website and check out their fee calculator or fee chart. At the time of this recording, a child's passport book costs $100. A child's passport book is valid for 5 years after issuance. If you think that you and your child will travel quite a bit in that time period, you can request a larger or non-standard passport book that has more pages in it. At the time of this recording, there is no additional cost for a larger or non-standard passport book. Because this is the first time that you're applying for your child's U.S. passport, you will need to pay a $35 execution fee in addition to the $100 passport book fee mentioned previously. By default, your child's passport will be processed within the standard time period listed on the U.S. Department of State's website. If you'd like to request that the processing time be expedited, you can do so by paying an additional $60. The expedited processing times are also listed on the U.S. Department of State's website. If you'd like the passport sent back to you within 1 to 2 days after printing, you can request that as well. You'll have to pay an additional $19.53. Both prices that I've quoted for expedited processing and delivery are optional and can be done either on the application itself when submitting it to the U.S. Department of State, or it can be done after the application has already been submitted to the U.S. Department of State. Just know that once you ask them to add on the services, you will have to pay for the fees at that moment. If you're applying for your child's U.S. passport within the United States, you'll likely be doing so at a U.S. passport acceptance facility. The U.S. passport acceptance facility will likely be one of the United States Postal Service locations. The $35 execution fee that I mentioned previously will be paid directly to the U.S. passport acceptance facility that you visit. The U.S. passport acceptance facility will determine what forms of payment they accept, but usually they should accept checks, money orders, debit, or credit card payments. The $100 passport book fee that I mentioned previously should be paid directly to the U.S. Department of State. The U.S. Department of State accepts checks or money order. Make the check or money order out to the U.S. Department of State, indicate the child's name and date of birth in the memo line, and sign and date it. If a passport agency will be accepting the payment, you should make the $100 passport book fee and the $35 execution fee out directly to them. And now, let's move on to the final step in the process, appointments. Because this is your child's first time applying for a U.S. passport, they will need to make an appointment at a U.S. passport acceptance facility, center, or agency. I've listed the definitions and differences between the three on the screen. You can make your child's passport appointment on the United States Postal Service website or on the U.S. Department of State's website. If your child and you are traveling internationally within 2 weeks, then you should make their passport appointment on the U.S. Department of State. If you and your child are traveling internationally and it's greater than 2 weeks from now, you should make their appointment on the United States Postal Service website. If you need some help making an appointment on either website, don't worry. I've made some videos explaining the process for both and I've linked them down below. If you've made your appointment at a United States Postal Service location, make sure that you arrive at least 10 minutes before your appointment time. If you've made your appointment at a U.S. passport agency, make sure that you arrive at least an hour before your appointment time because lines do get very long and you don't want to miss your appointment. And most importantly, make sure that you are organized for your child's passport appointment, regardless of which location you're going to. If you don't have your documents together, you don't have the appropriate copies, the passport agent could be so frustrated that they turn you away and tell you to make an appointment at another time. Now you've wasted your time and you have to find more time to go back and start the process all over again. And now you know what to do when applying for your child's U.S. passport for the very first time if they're under age 16. If you found this video helpful or useful, be sure to give it a thumbs up down below so that YouTube knows to push it out to other people looking for content just like this. Thanks for watching and making it to the end. I'll see you in the next one. Bye!